All right, in this video, I will go over the answers and a brief explanation of the 20 questions for the Algebra Error Practice Test number 2. Jumping right into problem number 1. It says we have f and g here, and then f plus some number creates g. So you can see that f goes up to make g. Well, how much does it go up? So I'm measuring from here to here, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So it would be g of x is equal to f of x plus 5 to move it up 5 spaces. So h is equal to 5. On the next problem, we're looking at y equals mx plus b. B is your starting amount, and then m is the slope, is the change. So what we're doing is we're putting marbles into a bucket. So we have y is equal to 3x plus 8. That's what this is right there. So 8 represents the bucket, and then you're adding the number of marbles, and then each marble weighs 3 ounces. So you start off with 8 ounces for the bucket, and then each marble is 3 ounces each per each marble. So that's the slope. It's 3, and then you're adding more marbles. The x is the number of marbles. So what does 8 represent? It represents the empty bucket, the weight of the empty bucket, which is b. Okay, page 2. Here we're just filling in the table here. We have a function. This is like saying y equals 7. Y equals 7n, but it's in function notation. So you're just putting in a number here, multiplying it by 7, and then adding 96. So we put 0 in. N is the number of deliveries. It's $96. Then we put 5 in for n. So it'd be 7 times 5 plus 96. So it'd be 35 plus 96 would be 131. And then now we're doing it backwards. We know the amount of pay, so that would be over here. So it'd be 145 is equal to 7n plus 96. So we're going to subtract over the 96, and that would be 49. It's equal to 7n. So 7 times 7 is 49, so that means there'd be 7 deliveries. Okay, quadratic. Quadratics increase at an increasing rate. So that would be this one. This could be like a log, but we don't know too much about logs probably. And then I would do 2 lines with those. So I'm going to go with C for a quadratic. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on here in number 5, but the main thing that you're trying to do is you're trying to solve for r. R is the distance between 2 objects. So if you have f is equal to g n m1 m2 over r2. The fastest way to solve this is to think about this as like a proportion. You can always switch the diagonals of a proportion anytime you want to, because 1/2 is equal to 3/6. If you switch these, switch these two right here, you get 6 over 2 is equal to 3 over 1, which is true. Or you could switch these two. You can switch the diagonals of a proportion anytime you want to. So I'm going to switch these two, get r squared is equal to g m1 m2 over f. Then all I have to do is do the opposite of squaring, which is taking the square root of each side of the equation, and I get r is equal to the square root of this nonsense here, m1, m2, and f. So that means choice D looks like the right answer. Okay, so basically what's happening on the next one down here is the number of visits goes up, and if the number of visits goes up, you're going to sell more stuff. The trap here is it doesn't mean that it causes it. It means that there's a correlation between the two. So that's the correct word to use. So the answer is D. It's a correlation between the two. Okay, now we're doing some basic Algebra 1. We're getting the x's on one side and the numbers on the other, and then we solve. So I'm going to rewrite this again over here. So 3x plus 4/5 is equal to 7 minus 2x. So I always say move the smaller amount of x first. So I have negative 2x versus 3, so I'm going to add 2x over. So I get 5x plus 4/5 is equal to 7. Then I'm going to move the 4/5 away from x because we're trying to get x by itself. So we get 5 x is equal to, if you type this into the calculator, you get 6.2. Then we can divide that over by 5 to get x by itself, and you get x is equal to the division of those two, which happens to be 1.24. All right, this one down here, number 8. Let's see. If this was linear, it would change at the same rate every time. Like the difference between here and here is 25, so it would be 25 divided by 1, which is 25. The difference between here would be 25 divided by 2. Like if you're thinking slope, like slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x. So from here to here, the change is 25 versus changing 1, so that's a change of 25. Here it's a change of 25 versus 2. So it's not linear, so it's neither one of these. So it's not linear, and let's see, it is not linear because f of x does not increase by a constant amount compared to x. You wouldn't say a percentage, you'd say a constant amount. So we're going to go with C. All right, 3 things that are the same. There's 3 answers to this that are the same. So 16 to the 5/2 power. I have a little song that I sing with this. All the students know the exponents E-I-E-I-O. The bottom one is the index and the top is the exponent. So an index of 2 means square root. So this would be the square root of 16 to the 5th power. So that's true. So that would be this one here. So that one works. Okay, now you could actually take the square root of 16, which would be 4, and then you'd have to take raised to the 5th power. So that's also true. Okay, so it's that one. Then when you multiply like bases, you add the exponents. So if you add 2 plus 1/2, you get 5/2. So this one is also true, because if you do 16 to the 2 power times 16 to the 1/2 power, that'd be 16 to the 2.5 power, and 2.5 is 5/2. So all of those are equivalent. If you have a calculator, you could type these all in and see that they actually did match this number right here. So you could type all 3 of these in and see if they match that. Okay, number 10. Negative correlation means it's gonna have a negative relationship, and typically you read a graph from left to right. So this one would have a positive relationship. So it's going up. There's no relationship here because the dots are scattered all over the place like chickenpox. Well, you kids don't even know what chickenpox are. So it'd be like this negative correlation. So I'm going to go with A. Then 11. If you increase everything by 10, the range, the high and the low are going to increase by 10, so the range is going to be the same. So it's not that one. The standard deviation and the quartile range, those are going to be the same. It's the average. You're making them all bigger, so the average is going to change, and average is mean. Okay, so basically we're going to identify the zeros of the function, so we're going to factor this. So it's 36x squared plus 15x minus 6 equals 0. So that's how you solve a quadratic. One way is to factor it. So each of these is divisible by 3, so I'm going to divide the 3 out and get 12x squared plus 5x minus 2 is equal to 0. All right. Now this factors again, and we know that it's not either one of these answers because it has to have the 3 in it, right? So we are going to factor it looking, now if we do 12 times 3, that makes 36. That's not what the answer is, so this is looking pretty good right here. So let's check that out. So we do 4x minus 1 and 3x plus 2. Does that work? So we do this times this would be 8. This times this would be negative 3. 8, negative 3 make the 5. That times that. Yeah, so this is how it factors. So basically, we factor it to find the zeros of the function. Down here, this is a little story problem. So if we're going to add 2 numbers together, we make 217. And if we subtract 2 numbers, we get 85. So this is what's called a system of equations with 2 variables, 2 unknowns. And all we you could guess and check this with a calculator and say this plus this is this. This minus this has to be that. It wouldn't take too long. But the fancy way to do it is to what's called the elimination method. We're going to eliminate y by adding the two functions together. So this plus this is 2x, and that cancels out. And then we add these two together, and we get 302. Then we divide each side by 2, and that gives me x is 151. And then if 151, and we got to make 217, so I need another 61 for that. So y is equal to 66, I'm sorry. So this plus this is that, and if we subtract the 2, we do get 85. So there's the quick way to do that. All right, number 14, you don't have to solve it, you just have to write an equation out for it. Basically, x is the number of nickels, and we know, or number of pennies, and the weight for the pennies is 2.5, so it's 2.5 for each penny. Then it's 5 for each nickels next, so that would be y, plus 5.7 for each z, and that is your quarters, and that has to be 75 grams. So there's the equation. So it's 2.5 for each x, 5 for each y, and 5.7 for each z, and that would be an equation to help you solve this situation. You don't have to solve it, you just have to come up with the equation. This is y equals ab to the x. This is exponential growth, and we know that it's exponential growth because it's tripling every year. A is your starting amount and your final amount. So there's the f of n represents my final amount. So I'm going to start with 80 snails. We're going to triple the snails, and we're going to do that for x years. And that's all you do for that. The next one, we have distance from Columbus, Ohio, and we have times during the day, and we have a couple of trains. And it says compare the distances relative to Columbus from which the trains begin their trip. Okay, so there's the beginning point. So it's 1,800 miles for this train is from Columbus, and 1,200. So the difference would be 1,800 minus 1,200. So it would be 600 miles difference between the two. So we're comparing them. Comparing with subtraction is typically how you compare something like that. And then when do they go to the same rate is the question. Sarah says they go different speeds, and Tom says they go the same rate. Well, it's the rate would be miles per hour, and that's really slope. So we're looking for the same slope. And so you can see from here to here on this interval, they have the same slope. So if they have the same slope, that means they're going at the same rate in miles per hour. So yeah, between 1 and 6, between 1 p.m. and between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m., they definitely have the same slope, which means they have the same rate. Number 17, we want a domain. Domain is your x values. Range is your y values. So if I have an x values, my x values are all positive here. My x values are all negative here. This isn't a function, so that's out. Here the x values are positive and negative. The y values are all positive, but the answer is this one, C. That's where positive x values exist. Okay. 2 points make a line, and exactly one line, so it's definitely A. So we have 2 points here, and they make a line. And then 2 points can also make an exponential function too. So that would be this one here. Number 19, this is just straight up algebra. We're going to distribute here first. So I write 2x minus 3 distribute plus 12x squared, and then 4 times that would be 8x. Then we put together our like terms. The x's are the same, so I get 12x squared. 8 and 2 make 10x, and then minus 3. So that would be choice D. And the last one, is a linear situation. It's y equals mx plus b. And the sunflowers are 6 inches tall, so that's your starting amount, right? So that's your B. And then inches per day, that's your slope, right? So it'd be y is equal to 1.5 times the number of days plus 6 inches. And then how long will it take to be 45? Well, then when will it be 45 inches? You just put y as 45 because that's your final amount. 1.5x plus 6. We subtract the 6 over, doing a little algebra here. We get 39 is equal to 1.5x. And then we divide 139 by 1.5. 39 divided by 1.5. So it'd be 26 days. So I divide over the 1.5. And I get x is 26 days. I used a calculator to divide that over. So that's the 20 questions. Please look at these. If you have any questions, stop by, talk to me, and good luck on the test when you take it.